So this is the last class. Please, if you're able to take yourself, to put yourself on video, I think that's nice for whoever's speaking to be able to see you guys. So if you can do that, I would appreciate it. If you can't, you can't. But if it's just because you're in your pajamas, you know, go put a shirt on or something. Yeah, probably a lot of you are at work, but some of you are in the house. My kids are all like, get dressed, it's time for school. Anyway, not that you guys are 9. But anyway, so this is the last class. I will be uploading for you guys. There is just, hey, it's Mike. Okay.
Right, so my name is Mike Nunez. I born and raised in St. Helena, California. Graduated from St. Helena High School in 1995. I started at Napa Valley College in '96. Didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but at the time I was working at Silver Oak Cellars, and then Justin Meyer, the former owner of Silver Oak, talked me into getting a career in viticulture, and then encouraged me to start taking viticulture classes and winery technology classes at Napa Valley College. And I was working at Silver Oak at the same time while I was taking classes. My boss was really flexible. There's even some semesters I was taking up to 16 units, working full time, 40 hours a week. So, you know, I'd be spraying sulfur in the middle of the night and then be in class first thing at 8 a.m. And then I got my associate degree in viticulture in 1998. And then I wanted to continue with a 4-year degree. So I went up to PUC, Pacific Union College up in England, and got my bachelor's of business and business management. And then in 1999, I left Silver Oak to work at a vineyard management company up in Kenwood called Buchanan Ranch. I was exposed to more vineyard development and a wider range of varieties and trellises, and just got a more understanding of the big picture. I was exposed to how to build ponds, drilling wells, the whole aspect. And then in 2001, some people that worked at Buchanan Ranch formed another company called Napa Sonoma Vineyard Group. I started working there at September of 2001, and I was there for about 10 years, or actually 9 years. And then again, more exposure to vineyard development, and but we were mostly concentrated in the Sonoma Valley and in Carneros. In 2010, you know, the economy was not the best, kind of similar of what it is now. I took the leap of faith, and with my brother was the one that kind of kicked me in the butt to say, hey, you got to start your own business. And that's when I jumped ship and said, hey, it's time for us to start our business. And 10 years later, here we are, still running strong. And you know, we farm about 200 acres. We farm 100 acres in Napa Valley, and then that ranges anywhere from Calistoga, St. Helena, Oakville, Rutherford, do quite a bit in Oak Knoll District, and then in Coombsville. And actually in Coombsville, I'm partnered with a client, a 3-acre Cabernet vineyard that we split the costs, and then at the end of the year, we split the profits of the sales of the grapes. And then we have another 100 acres in Sonoma Valley that mostly around the town of Sonoma, like Lobo Valley, 8th Street area, if any of you are familiar with Sonoma. That's generally the area we farm. And also in Glen Ellen, there's a few vineyards that we farm. And then over in Sonoma Mountain, there's some vineyards that we also farm. And let's see, that's, we have,
If I jump in and ask a question real quick.
sure.
It sounds like you have a lot of maybe smaller properties in Napa, just
Yes.
spread between all those appellations. What's like the average size of the properties you're farming here?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we started the business with, our focus was more trying to get more like 1 acre, 2 acre vineyards. And we do have a fair amount of those vineyards, which tend to be gentlemen vineyards, people's hobby vanity vineyards. I'd say there's about 45 clients that are about 2 acres, 1 acre. But then we also have some vineyards that are, our biggest vineyards, 24 acres. That's in Rutherford, the Preston vineyard. That's the majority is all Cabernet, and then we have some Petit Verdot and Malbec there. And then, you know, we have another vineyard that's 18 acres on Silverado Trail in Napa. We just planted that 2 years ago. So you guys drive by the strawberry farm. It's you'll see just north of it, or just south of it, you'll see my logo. Let me show you what the logo looks like. So it's there's a close-up. So it's the leaf with our last name, and yeah, so we planted that in 2018, and it's probably we're gonna thin all the fruit this year and get our first crop next year. That's mostly Cabernet. But yeah, so we have mostly our vineyards average about 10 acres. So there's a good fair amount of vineyards that are about 10, 15, 8 acre sites. And then we have a good handful of vineyards that are 2 acres and less. I mean, there's one vineyard that I got a call from a guy who wanted to plant 200 vines. And I'm like, well, you know, that's just not really, I'm not going to really have the time. And I really didn't have anyone to refer him to. And he just goes, you know what, I'll pay you what it would cost to put in an acre. I'm like, okay. So that was he really wanted his vineyard. So I made it happen. But yeah, so good question. That's pretty much a wide range of, then there's a 40 acre vineyard that we just harvest in Carneros. That's a Pinot, Chardonnay, and Merlot vineyard. So some of that goes for sparkling wine. So when a lot of other, when we're waiting for the Bordeaux's to ripen, that's a good place to put our people so that we keep them busy. And we also farm olive trees. There's times when after harvest, we try to find work for our guys so that we don't have to lay them off, and we'll start pruning olives, start harvesting olives, and then that'll take us into pruning season, and we'll keep our permanent staff, which is about we have about 14 full-time employees that are just strictly out in the vineyard workers. And then we just hired in April 1st, we hired 10 guys from Lodi that come, that's just extra seasonal help. And they commute every single day from Lodi. And we'll use them from April 1st all the way to the end of harvest. And these past 3 years, that's what we have been doing, because the labor has been very difficult to get. Although that now with the COVID-19 situation, there have been vineyard workers in the past that have moved up and then become waiters or construction workers, or started working in hotels, that due to the shutdown, they have come back to the vineyards. So we are finding that it is a little bit easier to get labor. right now. And but yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yes,
So 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 you said that that you have people coming from Lodi to work here. Do you
yes.
pay them? Do you pay them for the travel time, or is that something that you?
No, so essentially, when they come to work, we just have them show up at one site. So
Oh, I see.
they're not moving around. So now it can get a little tricky. That's a really good question. It could get a little tricky if you have them move from one site to another site to another site. But if it's, you know, you tell them the day before where they're reporting to work, they just show up to that one site. They don't move at all. So you don't have to pay travel time for that.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
you know, that gets a little sketchy because if you have, and this is a better question for a lawyer, but I'm not a lawyer. Don't take this as legal advice. It just seems like nowadays everything has to go through your lawyer before you communicate to your crew. But so if you have your guys show up at a site, but it's like one day it's in Napa, another day it's in Calistoga, another day it's in Santa Rosa, it might get a little tricky that way. I mean, I'm sure there's probably going to be a lawyer that can fight it out that would say, yes, you do have to pay them for overtime, for travel time. But right now, how the way we're doing it, we're not paying travel time. Now you have to pay them, like if they did have to move from site to site, you have to reimburse them for their fuel on that. But,
Now, and the other question that I was going to ask you, I know for a fact that the labor in Lodi is a lot cheaper than here.
Yes.
Do you compensate the travel
so
time
that's
with
why, that's a very good question, Samuel. So that's why we're able to attract labor from Lodi, because here, minimum wage just to start out in the labor, knowing absolutely no experience, you're going to be paying at minimum at least $18 an hour. Even $18.50. And you pretty much, the workers tell us, oh, well, Renteria is paying this much an hour. Walsh is paying this much an hour. So we pretty much have an idea, okay, we better set our prices to what everyone else is paying.
To compete with everybody.
Because if you don't, I know still right now some companies are paying $17.50 an hour. Those workers don't stay at those companies. They end up moving. They just hear word, oh, well, so-and-so is paying 18 or 19 or 19.50. They go where they're paying more.
Okay.
So that's always something you got to pay competitive prices if you want to maintain your crew. Because one issue is you've already trained that crew. Now, all of a sudden, they left somewhere else. Now you have to work on getting another crew to, and every day,
retrain.
you're getting more and more behind on your work.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, very good question.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are you guys planning to bring people from Mexico? And I hear that like Basan Vineyard Management.
Yes.
He started doing that legally. So
yes.
And I don't know if that's hard to do it.
So yeah, very good question. That's called the H-2A program. And so pretty much you can bring a crew legally from Mexico, but you have to house them, you have to feed them, and you have to guarantee them, I believe it's 40 hours of work weekly, at least. So let's just say it rains for the whole week. You still have to pay them the 40 hours. So, you know, maybe this year it might have not been the best thing because we are finding that there is available labor, but maybe last year or the year before it would have made sense. We don't use H-2A program. We just don't have the housing. But then my understanding is that you can pay them the minimum wage. So you don't have to pay them, you know, it's that fixed rate, whatever it happens to be for H-2A program, but you have to follow that.
Okay, thank you.
Then, so I'll just continue with
todo.
So we're a full service vineyard management company and, farm about 200 acres. We also, lately we've been concentrating our work on vineyard development, just planting. That's really where our focus is. And that's where we feel where we get more bang for our buck. Our profit margins there's more room for margins on that, and also we feel that equipment. So every time we spray, we disc, mow, use a tractor. There's higher margins on that too. On labor, you make a little bit of money, but it's not. It's more or less you're keeping the guys busy and just providing, the service. We also assist our clients in finding a buyer for their fruit. So through our contacts, it has been pretty easy to be a cab, but lately, just because of the glut in 2018 and 19, unless your cab is really prime stuff, you're going to have a hard time planting cab. I'm finding that there's some clients that are having us graft their Cabernet to another variety that is more, you'd have a better time selling. So some Cabernets are now being grafted over to Sauvignon Blanc. There hasn't been enough Sauvignon Blanc. Like some areas where it's not really appropriate to have Cabernet, especially like in very deep clay soils in Rutherford, we're finding that grafted over to Sauvignon Blanc, and rather than maintaining a lower yield with Cabernet for Sauvignon Blanc, we would be, trying to farm it at 6 to 8 tons to the acre. Whereas Cabernet, we would be farming it, it's really site specific, but it's anywhere from 3 tons to the acre on a hillside and some flats. But on the valley floor, you're mostly targeting about 4 to 5 tons to the acre for Cabernet. But that's all, again, really site specific. It's all going to depend on the soil type, the trellis, and also what the goal of your client and winemaker is. And the price point is going to have a lot to do with it. And also how many vines per acre is going to dictate that as well. When I say vines per acre, traditionally people have been planting 8x5 spaced vineyards where you have 1,089 vines per acre. Now we're finding more people are going higher density, like 6x4 spacing, 5x4 spacing, even 4x4 spacing. Like on a 6x4 spacing, you have 1,815 vines per acre. So more vines, more cost for vineyard development, vineyard farming, because you have more vines to prune, more vines to sucker, more vines to spray. So really, when people ask, how much does it cost per acre to plant or to farm or to develop, it's just, it's really site specific. And
for those smaller lots, say like 1 or 2 acres, are you still doing, I'm assuming you're doing tractor passes for sulfur and things, but are you doing
yes.
cultivation? Are you trying to minimize the amount of, equipment you have to haul back and forth?
It's all going to depend on the season. Like this year, we had a very dry winter. And so I'm really, unless it's a hillside where we do need to maintain a cover crop, if it's a flat, I'm having that vineyard disc, because keeping that vineyard disc is going to maintain the subsoil moist. And if you keep a cover crop or the native grasses, you're going to keep those grasses are going to be sucking moisture out of the soil. So our goal is really to maintain all the moisture that we have, because right now everyone's issue is water. We don't want our wells to go dry or our ponds to go dry. So if we didn't get the rain that we were normally used to getting, for Napa Valley, it's pretty much 32 inches of rain per year. This year, I believe it's somewhere around 14. That's a huge drop. So right now, if we have flat lands, we are disking it, and for this year. But if it was like a year like last year where we had those very late rains in May, I remember when we did this class, actually Molly, last year, it rained our class.
Yeah.
It rained, and that was like May 14th last year, I believe. And because of that rain, I know that there were some people that disked early and they weren't able to get in there and spray their vineyards, and some of them got mildew pretty bad. So there's also, that's another issue. I mean, what are you trying to get out of your vineyard floor? Do you need to have a cover crop there? Can you disc it? Everything, again, is so site specific. So also we have some clients that just because of the fires, they want us to disc maybe every other row so that if a fire does come, they have a fire break. The vineyards have acted as fire breaks for some of our clients, where they have a heavily forested property, and then all of a sudden they have a vineyard. The vineyard doesn't have all that fuel that a forest fire would need to get fed with. And so things are changing, and I know that the Napa Valley Grape Growers Association is an advocate for cover crops and leaning more towards the non-tillage. But if the year warrants disking your vineyard, by all means, I'm all for it. I'm all for doing the best practice for your vineyard for that given year, given the elements. Also, you know, when a client tells you, well, I want to get 5 tons to the acre, or I don't want to get more than 5 tons to the acre, you know, there's not an exact science on or a formula saying plant this spacing for this soil and use this trellis and you will exactly get 5 tons to the acre. I mean, there's just, you kind of have to just go with what the land gives you. I mean, there's certain things you can do to manipulate the vines, manipulate the soil, but it's all going to depend on what the rootstock selection also has something to do with. So that's really what it comes down to.
I have one question for you,
Yes.
Mike. So I know for a fact that let's say you have an acre vineyard. Do you have a contract with them for X
Yes.
amount of years?
Yes.
Minimum?
So pretty much our contract, the way we spell it out is we don't do any work unless we have a contract.
Okay.
Even if it's a client that we just, like if Molly asked me to go mow her vineyard, I know Molly. She's not going to stiff me, but there's been some people that we have done work in the past, and it was just like a verb, oh, mow my vineyard and I'll pay you X. When I first got started, that's a lot of things were handshake deals. For the first year, I learned really fast. First time you get burned, you don't want to get burned again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have a contract. It should be a contract that you should have your attorney. That's one thing you do. If you want to get into this business, you need to have a good labor law attorney. Our attorney's Michael Sacchi from the Sacchi Law Group, and he's out of Rockland. And there's a few others that are pretty good. Erica Rosasco's a good attorney, and then there's Anthony Ramondio, both great labor law attorneys. I'm sure there's a few others, but those are the 3 that stick out that my other colleagues have. So you have your labor law attorney review your contract, but essentially the way our contract's spelled out is we pretty much need to have a signed contract before any work's done, and we have a 30-day notice. So like, let's just say I go into contract with you, Samuel, you have a vineyard. I don't want to do work with you anymore. You know, we just don't like each other or whatever. You know, you got mad because I called you at midnight that we had this straight emergency. You know, whatever the reason is, you can give me 30 days notice. I can give you 30 days notice, and we call it quits. And
Okay.
that's pretty much how our contract. I mean, I know that there's some other vineyard management companies that have a 1-year contract that say even if you cancel it mid-year, you still have to pay for the rest of the year.
Okay.
regardless. So it all depends on what your contract. Essentially, if I want to enjoy going to the vineyard that I'm servicing, if for some reason something is not right, I just would rather part ways and have a toxic relationship. So
Okay.
that's pretty much how for the most part, all the clients that we have are very delightful to work with. And,
Okay.
you know, yeah, I'm really happy with all the clients.
So pretty much your contracts right now, they're month to month, I would say.
Yeah, month to
Kind
month. Exactly. Month to month.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And now with the COVID-19, you know, the majority of our clients live in San Francisco or the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, and their homes here in Napa Valley or in Sonoma County are their second home. But
okay.
due to the COVID-19 situation, a lot of them are spending most of their time here on their vineyard. So we do have to, just out of a courtesy, we notify them every time we're going to set foot on their vineyard, because a lot of them have kids, and you know, they're spending more time outside in the vineyards, and that's something that's changing. You know, what we're doing right now is Zoom is another situation we're going to start seeing more of. We're having safety meetings with all our supervisors through Zoom. I mean, before it was having to get everyone together, and that was always a pain, because there'd be someone in Calistoga, one guy in Sonoma, one guy in Coombsville, a guy in Glen Ellen. It just seemed like it was always a pain to get people together to meet. Now with Zoom, we're able to do this in a better, more organized fashion. And we could also record it, so it's confirmed that we did indeed have this safety meeting. That's, you know, if someone gets hurt or something, you have proof that that meeting did indeed happen.
Okay.
Lately, you know, in 2010, the business was really HR. I mean, that really was very minimal. Now your human resource department, my brother, who is my partner in the company, has taken on HR completely 100%. And that's something that every company has to have a really good HR department, because when you guys have to document your timesheets to the T. I mean, they just have to be perfectly documented. Your breaks have to be documented, just the right amount of time when you start, when you end. Lunchtime has to be documented when you know, right when you start, and it has to be at the time of start. It can't be like, let's say your lunch is at 11 o'clock. Has to be 11 o'clock. Can't be 11:01. 11:01 would dictate a lawsuit. Okay, so you have to have all your people have to be trained by. You guys have to have a injury illness protection program. You guys need to have all your MSDS of all the products that you guys are using. You have to have your California law postings, and you have to have your company policy. All your employees need to know exactly what's in this, what all this stuff means. So you have to take the time and continually train your employees, because the thing is, you guys are going to get a inspection from Cal OSHA. You can get it from the Department of Labor. You can get it from the County of Napa. Actually, before on my way over here to this Zoom meeting, we were getting inspected by the county of Napa at a site we were spraying sulfur. So I didn't, I'll let you know how that turns out, but what they pretty much want to look at is your employee properly protected? Did he have all his protection gear all in proper? Did he have his hand washing facility there? Did he have the rates, the spray work order? Did he have the emergency phone numbers to call in case there was an emergency? That's what the county is looking for.
Now, oh, sorry.
Uh-huh.
The other thing that I was going to ask you, how often do you train your, or you have an update, I would say,
Yes.
on any chemicals or any different laws that might come? Do you do it every month? Do you do it every quarter?
For spraying, the law states it's once a year for spray.
Okay.
So whoever's going to spray has to be trained once a year, but you do have to give a general pesticide training to all your workers.
Okay.
That's just the general. But like, we don't go into depth with all the actual products with them, but we do go in depth with all the actual products with the guys that are actually doing the spraying.
Okay.
So, yeah, and as far as the other training, like your injury illness protection program, like heat stress, sexual harassment, things like that, you know, we pretty much do that quarterly. So 4 times a year. So we pretty much do that right when we start pruning. That's usually the first week of January when everyone comes back after the holidays. Then we do one right when suckering is going to start around April 1st. When we hired the new crew from Lodi, we got everyone together and got them all trained. And then we'll do another one around July, and then another one right before harvest. And the one right before harvest, that's also another general harvest safety as well. We add those topics. There's a lot going on during harvest, and we just want to make sure that everyone is properly trained for that.
Okay.
You know, the other thing, you know, when I go out to the vineyards, I want to make sure that our crews, you know, have the shade. You need to make sure that they have their water, their cups, a place to refill their water. You need to make sure they have a place to sit. You have to have a sign out there, out in the entrance of the vineyard, wherever they're working. It has to have the contractor's name, the phone number of the supervisor's name, supervisor's phone number, the license number, to make sure that you do indeed have a licensed contractor doing the work. Because before, someone could just go to Home Depot and get a few guys and say, hey, go prune my vineyard, and here it is, it's whatever it is, by the hour. That's getting really hard to do now, because you really want to use, if you're a vineyard owner, you want to use a licensed contractor. Something happens with one of the workers, he gets hurt, I mean, you guys might be on the hook for the bill, because that guy that provided the guys might not have insurance. So if they don't have insurance, they have to go to the owner.
Now, the other thing I was going to ask you, bathrooms.
Yes.
How many bathrooms you have to have per crew? Let's say you have
so if you have 20 guys, you have to have one bathroom. One bathroom for 20 guys. But if you have one female in that crew of 20,
you have to have
two bathrooms.
Okay.
So if you have 21 people, you have to, and one of those is a woman, a lady, you have to have 3 bathrooms.
Okay.
So one bathroom per 20 employees, unless there's a female on the crew, you have to have another bathroom aside for.
Okay.
Or for, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So you have to have 32 ounces of water per guy per hour. 32 ounces. I mean, we also make sure, do they have first aid kit, work boots? I mean, there's people that have showed up in tennis shoes. I mean, that you can't, you just can't work out in the vineyard. Work boots. I mean, there's ladies that have showed up in leggings. I mean, that's just not, you know, you have to have jeans. I mean, you have a rattlesnake out there that they'll go through leggings like a hot knife through butter. You know that you have to make sure that all your vineyard workers know exactly where the water is, where the shade's at, where it is that they're going to go take their break. I mean, there's been inspections that people have shown up and OSHA asks, well, where's your water? And they go, well, I don't know. I mean, they gotta know where it's all at. And
people tend to forget when they're asking questions, right? They don't want to give the wrong answer. So they're like, I don't know. And you're like, no, you have
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
the other thing that I was going to ask you as well. So for every 20 employees that you have, do you have a supervisor, or you will go and manage? I mean, you will go.
No, we have a supervisor. Every crew has a crew leader or a supervisor.
Oh, okay, got it.
Right now we have a big crew. The 10 guys from Lodi, they have one supervisor with them. So essentially, though, that crew does all our big sites. So then we have a smaller crew, about 4 or 5 guys. They do our smaller vineyards. We currently have 2 guys that are just weed eating. That's all they do, just weed eat. Sites where we can't get a mower in there, or sites where it's organic or it's too steep, get a tractor. And then we have a crew that's just spraying with the backpacks. So there's a lot of sites that we have to spray with a motorized backpack. So those guys pretty much, I'd say about from April 1st through about the end of July, they're spending about 90% of their time spraying. And they do get a premium rate. So for that. And also weed eaters get a premium rate. Tractor drivers, we have 2 full-time tractor drivers, and then we have one guy that's kind of a crew leader, kind of a utility guy. If we need him to drive the tractor, we can have him drive the tractor. We need him to supervise. He can supervise, he can fix irrigation. And then we have a full-time irrigator that all he's doing is going to sites, from site to site to site. He has a client list, and he just verifies, did the water go on Monday for 4 hours? No, we have to make a note of it. Why didn't it go on? Is it irrigation malfunction? And we have to get that addressed right away. But from April 1st through the end of harvest, we have our irrigator / vit tech checking a site once a week. And that's all he's doing, is driving from site to site. And then at the same time, he's also taking a picture of the sites. Do the sites need to be mowed? Do they need to be suckered? Do they need to be shoot tucked? So kind of our eyes and ears. It's just amazing what we can do with technology nowadays. I mean, I would have loved to have had this technology back in 2001. But yeah. Also, what you need to train your guys how to treat unwanted, unexpected visitors. So unexpected visitors can be a wide variety of people. They could be OSHA, it could be the Department of Labor, it could be the county from Napa Valley, Napa County Ag Commissioner's Office. It could be someone saying that they're from the county and an imposter, just trying to see what it is that you're doing out there. What chemicals are you guys spraying? Hey, we want our vineyards to look as lush and beautiful as those vineyards. So, you know, they'll say, hey, we're here from the county. We need to see what it is that you guys are spraying. What is it that you guys are fertilizing with? And you always have to ask them, stop them where they're at. Our protocol is yes, can we help you? Can I help you? have our supervisors stop the whoever it happens to be. They have to show their ID. They usually have an identification on their with a lanyard, and just because they have that doesn't mean that is indeed who it is. So we have to have them ask them for their ID, and we have them say, okay, just wait a minute, I'm going to call the office, and then they call our supervisors call us, and they say, oh, so and so from the Department of Labor is here. And I'm like, okay, it's the Department of Labor, it's OSHA, go ahead, answer their questions. But if it's someone else, those are the only two agencies that you legally have to answer questions to. Anyone else, you could tell them to leave. They have no business being there. There's we also have trained our guys. A lot of our guys get so nervous. It is acceptable for them to say, you know what, I don't feel like answering any questions. And that's totally fine too. But some, we train them in a way that they all need to know their heat illness heat stress symptoms. That's what OSHA is going to ask you. That's what they want to make sure that the guys are trained. So if OSHA comes out, they're going to ask you, where's your shade? Where's your water? Where's your bathroom? If all that checks out, they're going to move on to the next site. And they're usually coming out when it's like above 96 degrees. They're going to go see, okay, it looks like there's a bunch of guys working over there. Let's go see if they have everything that they need to have. That's typically what OSHA is going to ask you. Now, if the Department of Labor comes out, they're going to ask you, they want to make sure, are you a licensed contractor? Okay, they're going to ask the workers, not the foreman, but they're going to ask the workers, do you guys get paid cash? Do you guys get paid, what day do you guys get paid? What bank do you guys use? They're going to ask you, they might ask you if they can see your pay stubs. And right there, they're going to see, okay, is all the required information on this pay stub that needs to be here? Is it all there? And depending on the mood that the Department of Labor guy is in, he might cite you, he might just correct you. Depends who it is that you get. So that's just food for thought. Make sure you guys have all that. Have your attorney review your pay stubs and make sure that everything that needs to be on them is indeed on them. They're also going to ask you, what time do you guys take your breaks? What time did you start? What time did you guys take your breaks? Because you have to have your break time be in between the meal time. So if, let's just say it's an 8-hour day, you guys start at 7 o'clock, your lunch should be at 11 o'clock, and then your break should be in between 11 o'clock and 7 o'clock. And then you need to have your afternoon break in between the ending time and lunchtime. So then typically the law only states that you only have to give a 10-minute break, but the industry gives 15 minutes regardless of the law stating 10 minutes. And then the other thing is that the Department of Labor might ask, okay, let's say the rows are quarter-mile long. They're going to ask, what time do you guys take your lunch break? Is it at 11? Okay, what time are you guys allowed to walk out of your rows to go to eat your lunch? Is it at 11? You have to allow enough time for the crew to leave the row and to get to wherever it is that they're going to eat lunch by essentially 10:59, not 11, 10:59. Because get there at 11, it might be 11 and 1 second. That might be a violation. It's just gotten so ridiculous how these laws are just pretty strict. So yeah, so the Department of OSHA.
So, sorry to interrupt. Do you have trouble getting your, you know, it can be, if you really want to observe the letter of the law, not, you know, sometimes crew leaders, everybody, they're just kind of lackadaisical about themselves, you know. That's what I've found is like, it's not necessarily what you say, it's getting them to do it, right? They want to work more or.
Repeat the question, Molly. You kind of didn't quite hear the whole thing.
Oh, was it? It's the house Zoom connection.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, my question was, do you have trouble getting your workers to follow that? Right. It's one thing to say it, like you have to do this exactly,
Yes.
but putting it into practice, people tend to, you know, they're more.
Very good point, Molly. So at all the trainings that I've gone to, this question has always been asked. And the thing is, when we do the training, we go around the room okay, so let's just say we discussed heat illness. What are the symptoms for heat stress? So I have the guys ask, I asked the guys, okay, so Juan, what is the symptoms? What are the 5 symptoms for the primary symptoms of heat stress? And so they're like, oh shoot, he's gonna ask. So they tend to pay attention. And if they don't get it, you have to give them, because nowadays you just have to write them up for everything. You have to have a file for every single employee, because the other thing is, like, if you ever need to fire someone, if you fire them and you don't have any write-ups or anything like that, that can be a potential lawsuit. So you want to have as much information on any employee. So in that situation, Molly, where we would just continuously try to get it so that these guys listen to what it is that we're trying to teach them. If they just don't get it after repeatedly, you know, going over it with them, you have to write them up. I mean, that's just how it is. I know there's people that are just, oh, when's this guy gonna get done? Let's just go back to work. I mean, you know, you really take the time to make sure that these guys understand what it is that you're trying to teach.
I have I have a question for you. So you said that nowadays you have to have every 2 hours a break and then 4 hours your lunch. Do the second. Now, what about when you're harvesting? I mean, do you have to stop?
You have to stop. You have to stop. There's even another thing called, that's where the companies have gotten in trouble, because there's so many plaintiff attorneys right now looking for this stuff. And let's say there's one guy on your crew that, you know what, I don't like that guy, you know, he's going to go to a plaintiff attorney. They're going to review your paychecks, pay stubs. That person's going to talk to everyone else on that crew and say, you know what, let's take these, let's sue them for whatever it is, and we'll split it all 50-50. Well, you know who really comes out ahead with that it's the plaintiff attorneys, and they always get chop change. Is what it comes down to. So, but yeah, if it's gotten so, like when my father used to be a vineyard worker, they never took breaks during harvest. I mean, he worked for Mondavi for 25 years, and you started working and you wanted to get in there and out as quickly as possible. So now, like let's say you have one more row and it's lunchtime. No, you have to take your lunch before you pick that one more row. Even if that row is only going to take 10 minutes to pick. You have to stop, you have to take your lunch, and you have to, that's just how it is. And then you have the winemaker on the side and the owner. What? Can't you just finish this one row? It's only going to take you 10 minutes. Sorry. That's what the law says. That's just how it is. And get the owners, well, we need to have the grapes there a half an hour ago. Sorry, they're gonna have to wait an extra half an hour. That's just, talk to Gavin about this and see if he can change that. I don't know. It's it's also the thing is that you really gotta watch is if you tell your crew to show up at 6 o'clock, there's grapes. Let's say they show up at 5:50 and they start sharpening their knives. You have to compensate for that time. So you have to tell them, no one starts any work. You can't even sharpen your knives before the start time. If you can't even put on your boots or anything like that. Anything that has to do with work cannot be done before the start time. That's very important. Time, this is called non-productive time. So if you're paying your workers out in the field by the ton, let's say there's a group of 8 guys and you guys are getting paid, let's just say $200 a ton. So you guys picked 5 tons, that's $1,000. You guys are going to split amongst 8 guys, right? Well, what about the time that it took you, the 30 seconds it took you to walk from block A over to block C? Let's just say 30 seconds it took you to walk over there. That has to be paid on a different category called non-productive time. And that's typically the average hourly rate is what is compensated.
How do you keep track of that time? Because at Walsh we started using AdCode.
Yes.
Are you using AdCode as well?
No, we're still doing it manually. We're not quite at code just yet, but we have the supervisor is keeping track of all that time, and usually, just so that there's no problems, we end up to kind of pad it a little bit more. So like if we let's just figure half an hour of non-productive time, we'll pay an hour. That way, it just makes sense for us, because there's always going to be that one worker that says, oh, well, it was really 31 minutes. It wasn't 30, it was 1 extra minute. So just the more you can do to avoid those issues, the better off it can be.
Hey, Mike, do you know offhand what the time limit is for, like if you're harvesting, if you have a pick that's going to take 6 hours, you don't need a lunch, right? Is there?
Yeah, so that would be a question for my brother. I believe it's 6 hours, but yeah, I believe you're right. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what it is.
Right.
It is 6 hours because
It is 6
that's
hours. Okay.
Yeah, it's the state law. Before, either in the winery or in the field, if you work 6 hours, you cannot get. You don't have to you have to have your break, but then you don't have to get your lunch. So you get 2 breaks.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to have your 2 breaks. Yeah.
This all is very important to make sure this is all followed. And you do have that one crew that, no, I don't want to take my break. I just want to finish. I want to go home. But you say, sorry, that's the law. You have to follow it. And because what tends to happen, you might have that one employee that does want to take his break, and the other 7 just want to get done. So that's really what it comes down to. It's yeah. Let's see what we.
So, Mike, I'm curious about, well, I've got a couple of questions from students to ask, but just that you are already having clients who are wanting to move on from cab. I mean, it doesn't take much time.
Yeah, I mean, it was like back in 2015, 2016, 17. It just seemed if someone had a raw piece of land, undeveloped piece of land, they're like, how quickly can you plant a cab vineyard out there? And then all of a sudden we had the glut of 2018, and 2019, and all of a sudden there's too much cab available. And also it was a bumper crop. Those years were bumper crops. Too much cab out there. So yeah, it's kind of like what happened with Pinot back in 2008. There's too much Pinot, or everyone was ripping out Merlot after the Sideways movie came out. And people started like grafting Merlot to Pinot or whatever. I mean, there was people planting Pinot like in hotter areas that it wasn't really even appropriate for Pinot. There were people buying it, but I mean, I planted a cab vineyard in Carneros. Someone wanted cab, and it was Carneros, and you know, probably. I mean, I know there are some people that do have cab in Carneros, but it's not going to be the. It's going to be very different from the cab you're normally used to, like in St. Helena or Rutherford. You know,
Right.
a little bit higher alcohol, better. So you're going to have a lower sugar Cabernet out in Carneros. But yeah, it's changing a little bit. Even like in Sonoma, I'm planting other varieties other than Chardonnay, Pinot, and Merlot. I'm starting to plant more Rhone varieties like Grenache Blanc, Picpoul Blanc, Viognier, Marsanne, Roussanne, Mourvedre, varieties like that. And there are people out there that want to buy that. So I'm having success with that. I want to talk to you guys about bidding. So I have kind of an unorthodox way of how I do my bidding process. Let's just say Spencer here wants me to put in a 10-acre vineyard. You know, in the old days, Spencer would call me, "Oh, hi, I'd like to get a bid on planting 10 acres." And I just go, okay, and I'd go, how about 10 o'clock on Tuesday? And, you know, and we'd make an appointment. But now what I'm doing, I'm asking the client what variety, what spacing, what do you have a permit? I'm trying to get a pre-qualification first before I have to waste his time and my time going out there, because in the old days, what would happen is I'd go out there and I'd do the dance and tell him how great I was and how, you know, he needs to hire me. And then we'd talk about price, and then he'd say, well, that's a little bit more than what I want to spend. Can you do it for X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, well, that's not going to work. So I tell, let's just say Spencer, he wants to plant 10 acres and it's 6x4 spacing. I'll go, you can go, we can go two ways about this. We can go 6x4 spacing. There's no rocks. The range is going to be anywhere from 40,000 an acre to 55,000 an acre without having to see it. So which conversation are you going to want to have? Are you going to want to have the more 40,000 an acre or the 55,000 an acre? He goes, wow, that's a little bit more than what I want to spend. How about if I went a wider spacing, like a 5x8 spacing where there's 1,089 vines per acre? So at that point I could say, okay, that's going to drop it down to maybe 35,000 to 42,000 per acre. But at 6x4, you're going to have more vines. So maybe he might go back to, well, I'd like to maybe explore the 6x4, but maybe at the lower price. So once he tells me I have the range, I can kind of see that he's serious. And then I also ask, is there another decision maker that needs to be there? Because after we meet in person, what has happened in the past, we talk about the price and everything, then they have to go, well, I need to talk it over with my wife. So I ask for the wife to be there or the husband to be there. If that way, I want to get a decision. If I am going to go out there and indeed meet with them, I want to make sure that he is serious about me going out there. And I just say, assuming that you like the price, when can we get started? What's the time frame? When do you want to have it finished? So right there, I mean, there's some clients that, oh, well, I don't want to get started until next year. So it's good to know these things up front. The other thing is I tend to ask for, depending where it is, if it's pretty close to my office, I won't ask for a consulting fee. But if it's a drive, I'll tend to ask for a $150 consulting fee, because in the past what I've done is go out there and it's just a waste. They were just trying to get my information from me, just trying to get me to teach them how much it costs to plant a vineyard and stuff. So it's just waste of my time, well, not a waste of his time, but waste of my time. So I really find that the clients that are serious about moving forward with a vineyard development don't have a problem paying the consulting fee. But then I say, if we do move forward with this vineyard development, I waive the consultation fee. And so it's a win-win for the client and for me. So that is that's pretty much how we do the bidding process. And I have saved a lot of time on those steps of pre-qualifying my clients. You know,
Mike,
be honest with me and say, you know, we want to get bids right now for other people, from some contractors. You're the second contractor we called, and you know, one thing I might ask, well, what's the other contract? What are you hoping to hear from the other contractor that you haven't heard from me already? And sometimes they're like, well, I just don't want to be bothered with the process. I mean, there's some clients, I just had my kitchen remodeled, and I had 3 different contractors. I had one contractor do a bedroom, another contractor did a bathroom, and then the contractor did the kitchen. The one that did the kitchen was a really top-notch contractor. It was very pleasant to work with. I had the one before that did the bathroom. It was kind of more of a lot of hand-holding was involved. And I mean, that's just something I don't want to do any hand-holding. So that's what a lot of my clients have told me in the past, that, you know, we want to choose a contractor that we don't have to hold their hands at all. You know, we want to turnkey. We hire you to do this, do it. So that's on bidding. That's pretty much what we do. Also, if we go out to get a bid for a vineyard management project, like if it's for maintenance, we want to we'll give a range on a per acre price. So it could vary. I mean, again, it's how many vines do you have per acre, how many, what trellis, and what is the goal of the winery, the winemaker? What type of fruit are they trying to get? I mean, if the grapes are, the goal is to go to a $100 bottle of wine, the price is going to be a little bit higher. But if it's, you know, tonnage is going to be their goal, you know, we could go to the minimum cost, but it's really site specific on those costs. I think I had a question that just came in here.
Yeah, there's a few questions.
There's a few questions. Okay, just how experience starting a company with your brother? I started a wine shipping company with my brother, and it.
So my.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah. So I was gonna ask you. You mentioned that sometimes your client says, you know what, I'm not ready to do it. So the price that you're giving it today, it might change next year. Do you?
Hey, sorry, Samuel, you're cutting out.
Samuel,
what we talked about today. Hello?
Samuel,
yeah,
we
Samuel,
missed.
you cut out in and out. Can you repeat the question?
Oh, okay. So my question was, so let's say that, like for instance, today you said, my client, he says, I want to do a vineyard plan today, but I'm not ready for it. Maybe next year. So the price that you give me today, you will keep your word for the price, or you will say, you know what, maybe next year will be a little bit more.
Yes, that's a very good question, Samuel. And I do have people that have contacted me a year, even 2 years before, because there's other issues that they're not ready because they don't have the permit, and the permitting process can take sometimes up to 2 years. That you need to get, especially if it's over 5 acres or 5% slope, you have to get an erosion control plan, and then you have to get biologists involved and archaeologists involved if there's an Indian burial ground. So studies can take, up to a year, 2 years, depends on the site. But when I tell those clients that ready to plant it here, but they want me out there 2 years before to get the footprint of the vineyard, yeah, I'll certainly say, let's just say it's a 10-acre vineyard for 6x4 spacing. I'll say it's like 45,000 per acre. I'll say depending on labor, depending on materials, it might go up a little bit, but I can't guarantee that that price is going to stay the same because when I was just remodeling my my kitchen, I had a hard time getting the countertops because of the COVID-19. So we weren't able to get the material in. So, I mean, there's other places out of state I could probably get it, but now that's going to drive up the cost. And, we already had a contract with APA that we have the contracts with. So it's always sites. It's going to depend on a case-by-case basis. I mean, who would have known that we would have had this? It could be a situation like that, or it could be the labor price might go up another 25% in 2 years. I mean, we just don't know. So, yeah, that's a good question.
Okay.
Another question from who came up with the logo, the variety is the leaf from. So the logo came from a high school buddy of mine, Joe Hurdell from Hurdell Printing. Growing up in St. Helena, Mike Hurdell, the father, was my football coach in Pop Warner, and his son played football with me in high school. And so I just handed it over to him. I told him exactly kind of what I wanted to do. I'm not really sure on the leaf, but it looks to me to be like a Merlot leaf to me.
Can you hold it up again? Can't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a Bordeaux variety.
Yeah. Then on our trucks are white and our logos are brown. So it's a little different on our attire, the logo. But yeah. And then pricing from Tina. The pricing for vineyard development, is it for brand new, uncleared vineyards or for replanting? So yeah, this is very a site-specific question. I mean, let's just say you have absolutely no trees to pull out, no rocks to get out. The soil is loamy clay. You can penetrate it easily. That's what the price for the vineyard development is. So if it's like 1,000 vines, 5x8 spacing, with a vertical shoot position trellis, 1,089 vines per acre, that can range anywhere from 35,000 to 42,000. Now, if it's 6x4 spacing where we have 1,815 vines per acre, again, no rocks, no trees to pull out. That could be anywhere from like 46 to 55,000 per acre, because now you're almost doubling the amount of vines, almost doubling the amount of stakes and wire and emitters and labor. So, but let's say you have a bunch of trees to pull out and a bunch of rock to pull out, and I mean, you could easily spend 50,000 per acre just on removing rocks, just on removing trees, burning the trees, disposing of the trees. Then the question is, the county doesn't want you removing the rocks from the site. So now the question is, what do you do with those rocks? So the question, you have to, what we have to do, we have to dig a big hole, bury the rocks. There's some vineyards that I know over in the Lobo Valley area in Sonoma, up on 8th Street East, you go up the hill, there's areas there that it's just rock and people still want their vineyards. So what you could do in those situations, what we've done, we've made raised beds. So you make like a horseshoe of rocks, like a little well, and then you just shave some soil from where there is soil and fill it in, and that's how you get your vineyard planted. I've seen some people do it here in the Napa Valley, especially like in, I know like over by Pritchard Hill, you have a lot of rocky soil in that area. That's another. So again, on vineyard prep, removing trees, removing the rocks, very big variable. So to get an idea of what that's going to cost, I mean, you do your soil analysis, get out there, you might need to do, several pits per acre to get a good idea of what you have below your soil. And then you're going to have to know, it's really a skill to really know how your team can work that soil, because if someone we dig a 5-foot backhoe pit by 3 feet wide, and just see what do we have under that soil, under that layer of soil. If it's a lot of cobble, like the size of a football or a softball, we can work with that, because we can get T-posts to penetrate that pretty well. But if it's a bunch of fractured rock on top of fractured rock or big boulders, I mean, you're going to have a hard time developing that. So that's really something that you really have to have a good idea of what you're getting yourself into before taking on a project like that. Also, on our contracts, we have a clause in there that says if we get into a extreme adverse condition that we didn't know at the time of doing the contract, we reserve the right to renegotiate the price for that general area. I mean, there was a deer fence that we installed that about, I'd say 75% of the fence was all loamy soil. And then there's this one spot that it was just rock. So every single post and stake had to be jackhammered. So that's going to add more cost. So I just went back to the owner and said, hey, look, this 25% section, we're going to have to do, rather than $18 a linear foot, we're going to have to do it for $28 a linear foot. So done deal, no problem. We explained the situation. They signed the contract. It was something we could work out. One of the situations in doing a vineyard development that can be a problem is in the past there have been issues with nurseries providing virused vines. And so when you buy vines from a nursery, you have to sign a disclaimer. They're advising you that there might be a possibility that the vines might have a virus, red blotch, leaf roll, or something. Now, the nurseries are doing the best testing that they can possibly do for this given time. I mean, red blotch, a lot of people in the beginning were confusing it with phosphorus potassium deficiency because of the red leaf. But what you do is you staple the contract that the nursery gives you to your contract, and you say, look, these vines, there's a possibility that might have something come up in a few years, or maybe not, but you just let them know ahead of time that this is a possibility that we might get some red blotch in the vines. Maybe, maybe not. But for the most part, the nurseries that, you know, I buy grapes from, I haven't had a problem in the last like 6 years. Nurseries that I buy grapevines from are Nova Vine, Duarte Nursery, Martinez Nursery, Sunridge. Those are the ones that I mostly do business with, and I've been happy with them. So I'm not trying to bash any nursery here, but you know, you just have to do your due diligence on when you plant a vineyard. Are the vines, when they're put in, are they thick stock, or are they really thin? I mean, really get someone to examine your vines. You can hire Dr. James Stamp to come out on the day that you plant, and he can examine your vines before you get them planted. It's smart money. He's a consultant, and I've used him for a project where the owner just wanted to confirm that the vines were indeed good nursery material. Got a few more questions here.
Yeah, so I had students post questions on another site.
Yeah, so how do you encourage vineyard owners to use your services when you first started doing business? So when I was working with the other vineyard management company, back in 06, 07, I started getting going to a lot of wine tastings and introducing myself to people, winemakers, and you know, a lot of the people that I met at these wine tastings. I know Copia was a big part of that, because Copia, you know, it's where the right next to Oxbow Market. That used to be an area where you could go taste wine and take wine education classes, and it's pretty much the Sunset Magazine life. And I met a lot of people at those events and introduced myself. And you know, some of them were like from the Bay Area, and you know, they'd call me up and say, "Hey, we want to plant a vineyard." And I recruited a lot of business for the vineyard management company that I used to work with. And then when they got word that I started my own company, they followed me, and that's what they're the ones that allowed me to get started. I had one client that paid me the whole. He had 1 acre, paid me the whole vineyard management cost up front, right at January, and I was able to use that to keep the company going. And so that was 10 grand for the 1 acre, and you know, I was able to use that as capital to, you know, get payroll going and keep things going. And the other part of that question, you know, what makes me us stand out from other competition is the fact that we do small vineyards. And there's, you know, I think like Karina that works for Walsh, she probably, if someone was to call them and say, "Hey, we have a 1 acre vineyard here, can you come help us out?" You know, they'd probably refer us to them, because we have gotten referrals from Walsh. And we do, you know, the way I see it, there's a lot of work to go around. It's not like, especially in the Napa Valley, there's Sonoma Valley, there's plenty of work to go around. It's not like I'm not going to show up to one of Walsh's vineyards and say, hey, try to hire me because I'm cheaper or I could do it better. It's we're all in this together. I know the owners from Walsh, they're good people, and Rolando is a great guy. He's I know him quite well at Walsh. Pina Vineyard Management, they've referred over business our way. They usually it's smaller sites or sites that like right now every single vineyard needs to get suckered or shoot positioned, and you only have a certain amount of farm labor to get the work done. There's not enough labor to get it all done, and so there's a lot of these clients in a panic. We've gotten a lot of work that way, yeah, I would say what has us stand out is that we are able to do smaller vineyards, whether development or management, and where the bigger companies would probably not want to even go there. On expanding, okay, do you plan on expanding? If so, how will that change your license and permits? Expanding, the only expansion I really would like to do is just on developing more vineyards, but I think as far as managing more vineyards, I'm not really interested in expanding that much. I just say more on vineyard development. But that's really where the profit margins are, the higher margins on vineyard development and tractor work, as far as, like I said, when the class first started. Yeah, that's really how I would, on vineyard development, because I have my vineyard development crew has worked with me since 2000. He came over, actually when he was 16 from Mexico, and he hasn't been back since, but he pretty much, all I have to tell him is the boundaries of where I want the vineyard developed, the spacing, the row, direction, and he takes it from there. I don't even have, and I can come back when he's finished, and I'll know it'll get done correctly. He's also placed consecutively got third place in the pruning competition back in 2015, 16, and 17. So Silvano Ponce, he's a great guy, and he's got 2 cousins that work with him, and it's a three-man crew. Those guys can pretty much install 1 acre from start to finish in, depending, anywhere from like 1.5 weeks to 2 weeks, no more than 2 weeks. So they've got it down to a science, and yeah. The name of the consultant, so it's Dr. James Stamp is who we use, or who my client wanted to use for let's see, I think I have his calendar right here. It's called Stamp Associates Viticulture Incorporated. His phone number is 707-829-8405. James Stamp, www.jamesstamp.net. So if you're questioning the source of your grapevines, that's who you would want to use. Is there anything that you would have done differently when you first started in the wine industry, looking back now? That's a very good question. And yes, I would have started my HR department. I would have a stronger HR department right off the bat. The environment of vineyard management right now is very different from 10 years ago. There's a lot more laws and regulations, but we were involved in a wage and hour issue with the Department of Labor. We had a guy doing what's called ghost employee checks, And ghost employee checks is when you have a supervisor that has 9 guys on the crew, but then one of the guys quits. And then when that guy quits, he doesn't tell us that he quit. He just all of a sudden keeps putting down that the guy's still working. And so my brother caught it, did an audit and caught the guy doing this. And we were just gonna, fire him. We weren't gonna, we caught him red-handed. But then, we didn't do that properly. We should have, looking back, we should have gone to the cops like our lawyer, our business attorney recommended we do. But no, we just wanted to say, hey, you know what? We caught you doing this. That's it. So what did he do? He went to the Department of Labor. And when he went to the Department of Labor, he said, these guys are not giving us breaks. They're not giving us lunches. They're bringing in minors to work. And they haven't paid us, and they pay us cash. So what happens? The next day, 4 federal agents from the Department of Labor showed up to one of our sites. So the guy the foreman that did this to us, he was our foreman. He wanted us to essentially go under so that he can then go work for somewhere else and just say, oh well, these guys went under, so I'm looking for a job. And so we were getting calls from just about 10 vineyard management companies. Oh, I hear that you got rid of so-and-so. He's asking us for a job. He said you guys went out of business. Is that true? No, that's not true. And so that's what caused us to hand over our timesheets we had to then hire our labor law attorney who reviewed all our timesheets, and before he handed it over to the Department of Labor. And essentially, what I would have done differently, Ricardo, is I would have made sure that every single break was documented perfectly. I would have made sure that every lunch was documented perfectly. And I would have, because that's where they got us. They got us off technicalities. And it's not that the guys did not get a break. It's not that the guys did not get a lunch. It's that we did not record it at the proper time that they were supposed to get their lunch and their breaks. But you know what? That experience made us even stronger. I mean, I could say that we are pretty much up to speed where Walsh is. I'd say Walsh, I think they're probably one of the companies that dictate what safety and what HR is all about, because they have everything down to exactly how it is. And you know what? We're all in this together in the Napa Valley. If you're a licensed vineyard management contractor here in the Napa Valley or in Sonoma Valley, you want to make sure all this is just perfect, because the day you don't expect for the Department of Labor or OSHA to show up to your site is the day they show up to your site. So you got to make sure your guys are trained properly. And like Molly said earlier, those guys that you try to teach them, but they still don't get it. You got to just keep at it. Like that one, you're only good as your weakest link. You got to get this ingrained in their mind that if the Department of Labor, if OSHA shows up, this is what you got to know. They're going to be asking you this, So I would say HR, get your HR. I'm knowing that a lot of people are going to school now to become an HR director. It seems like that's a new occupation to get into, because there's bakeries, restaurants that have gone out of business because of a wage and hour lawsuit. And the guy that tried to do this, no one in Napa Valley will hire him. Not one person. I mean, when they came up to me and asked me, well, you know, that he apparently said that we went out of business. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's. But so he's working right now in Santa Rosa. He had to get out of the valley, but I'm not sure exactly where. But yeah, that's an experience that was very humbling. Um, but we are a better company for it. That's one thing I will say. Let's see. When working for other vineyard management companies, certainly as you identified anything that you wanted to change about the industry by starting your own business, that was, okay, let me read this. When working for other vineyard management companies prior to starting Nunez, did you identify anything you wanted to change in the industry by starting your own business? Yeah, that's a really interesting question. You know, boy, I don't know how to answer that. That's really, really interesting. I know that there were situations that man, I got to come back to that one, Molly. I don't know. You know, I would say I noticed that there were some certain things that there were guys, you know, I am recognizing the guys that do the work. I'm praising them a lot more. Like, I know that there are some guys that I used to work with at the vineyard company that now work for me that they never got any credit for the work that they did. And I am really giving the guys, especially my development guys, you know, and I compare their work to work from other companies, and I can totally see that every stake is perfectly aligned. I mean, it's just like there's no, I'm trying to find a mistake out there, and I just can't find it. I'm like, wow, these guys, they just got it down to a T. And, you know, I tell the guys that do the management work, you know, I want the vineyards to look like they belong on the cover of a Sunset magazine. And so I say, take a before picture and an after picture. And then I can, sometimes I've had clients, I've got some clients that are very picky, some that are not so picky, but you know, some clients that they see one weed, they want the whole vineyard disc rather than just going out there with a shovel and just taking care of that one weed. So I'd say it's giving the guys the credit that they deserve for doing such a fine job. That's something that I didn't really see much in the company that I worked with before. Now I'm doing that more now with us. And you know, going back to Ricardo's question on the what I would have done different. You know, there are good. I know about 6 companies that this did happen to them as well. You know, the wage and hour issue. I know some restaurants, and it's not just us. So this is very common, and this is what plaintiff attorneys are targeting. They're targeting the vineyard workers, someone from the inside, and to say, get me a few of your paychecks and let me review them and let me see how I can get some money for all of us. You know, that's just. Do you use E-Verify? That's a question for my brother. He's. I believe you have to, is my understanding, but I can. That's a good question. I believe we do, but I don't quote me on that. But do you guys mind if we take a 2-minute break? I just want to refill my coffee and.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's take a 2-minute break. We don't have too much more time.
Okay, how much more time do you guys got, Molly?
Well, do you guys have to go at 11:50, or can you stay on for a little bit more?
I can stay.
Okay.
Okay.
Some people can stay. Some people might have to go. Let's see. I've got a meeting. I think it's at 12:30 though. So.
Okay. Sure. I have all the time you guys need. So let me know. I'll be back in 2.
All right. So let's give. We'll come back in a few minutes.
Molly, do you think he's recording this break? Oh, you're muted.
What's that?
Do you think he's recording this break?
Oh.
In his books? I hope so.
IG handle.
All right. I paused it before. So, year-round employees, or are they temporary?
So yeah, we have 14 full-time people in the vineyard that are, and then we have the 10 seasonal from Lodi. Then we have 2 bookkeepers in the office. We have one that's full-time and then one that's part-time. We also have, of course, my brother, who's my partner, and his main focus is HR. And then we have an irrigator, full-time irrigator, who's also a VIP tech, and 2 full-time tractor drivers. And yeah, that's pretty much our team. So.
As far as frost protection in the smaller vineyards you do in Napa Valley, are those typically done with sprinkler systems or fans? And then do you?
Yeah, it really depends on the situation. So we're going to really see, I mean, because frost protections, that's a huge expense. I mean, it's going to make sense for you to put in a wind machine, or do you have the water available to deal with that? It comes down to, I mean, I've asked some of my vineyard workers, I mean, some of my vineyard clients, you could also rent a wind machine, but I believe it's a 3-month minimum rental. And I believe it goes anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500 a month. So,
oh, wow.
So that's just something, do you really want to get into that? Or does it make sense for you to buy a wind machine? And probably for your situation, because most, like in St. Helena, or water is going to be an issue for you to use that water for frost protection. They're probably going to frown on that. But then where is your vineyard? Is it going to be in a neighborhood where you're going to tick off all your neighbors, or there's always those situations. I mean, St. Helena, they get pissed off if you start using leaf blowers before there's
7 o'clock. 7 o'clock.
Yeah, so again, I mean, what's it gonna? That's something that you just gotta look at the big picture. What's really your main focus, or your end result? And I think that's going to really answer your question for frost protection. A lot of our clients, I'd say in that situation would just roll the dice and not do the frost protection. Only if it's where they have frost protection is really if they it's a really bad area for frost, and their livelihood depends on the crop. That's really where they would get frost protection. So.
One more I just added.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. The threat for the wine industry, I would say this COVID-19 is a huge threat. I mean, if we can't open tasting rooms and have people start drinking, buying wine, I think it's going to be the domino effect and start affecting us. I mean, fortunately, we are considered essential business and we can keep our guys working, but I mean, if the end result, you're not able to sell it, I'm hearing of, those dairy farmers out in the Midwest or that are just having to throw away all that milk because they can't get people to buy the milk, or those cattle farmers that are just having to euthanize their cattle because they can't get people to buy all that cattle. So yeah, I think the COVID thing's a huge threat. Also,
have you had any wineries, kind of wiggle out of their contract this year based on?
Yeah, so that's a really good. There was a seminar 2 days ago through the Grape Growers Association. So apparently, the winery has to show proof that they're not able to buy those grapes, but I believe it's only for 1 year. If it's like a 5-year contract, they're not going to be able to let you off easily. But that's a question for an attorney, because when I was on that Zoom meeting, I was getting phone calls, so I didn't get the whole message. So I need to hear that message again. But that was a really good. And I encourage anyone, if you can, become a member of the Napa Grape Growers Association. We are members, and they always bring out all the latest trends for the Grape Growers Association, for all the industry, and yeah.
How do you become a member?
So you can sign up online. It's a fee, and it's for growers. It's a certain amount per acre that you farm, or acre that you own. But I think you'd probably be, if you're not a vineyard owner or a vineyard management company, you'd be as I believe as a friend member. I think the price will be a little bit less for that, but look them up online, the Napa Grape Growers Association. Another organization to be a part of is the Napa Valley Vineyard Technical Group. I am a member of that. They have shut down the organization just until this COVID-19 situation.
One question that I have for you. So you were saying that, like right now, some of the wineries might not get the fruit, but what about the growers? What are they going to do with the grapes? Are they going to leave it in the vines, or what are they going to do with that? Do they have insurance?
Yeah.
Or what would happen?
Yeah. So that's a very good question. So essentially, now it's all going to depend on, you could still hold, if you have a contract with someone with a winery that they want to opt out of the contract, they're not going to be able to opt out of it just like that. My understanding from the seminar given by the Grape Growers Association, that they have to show proof that they indeed cannot pay it. Like if they are having a true financial hardship, they have to show that proof. So I don't know what that's going to require. Is it going to require showing financial statements? That's a question more for a lawyer. But
okay.
On the flip side, there are some growers right now that are not in contract, that are having their vineyards farmed. I think those guys are probably going to end up selling their grapes at a major discount. And, there's going to be people buying Cabernet. I knew of someone selling Napa Valley Cabernet and Oak Knoll for $1,000 a ton last year.
No way.
They sold, I think it was like 80 tons for $1,000 a ton. And I didn't cover the farming costs, but it was either that or let it rot on the vine.
And what's the average price on
county average price right now is I believe $7,800 a ton.
Wow.
So
it's
here's the thing. Yeah, but there is a lot of cab out there. So I think those $7,800 a ton, there's wineries right now making deals for like half of that.
Okay.
$4,000, $5,000 a ton right now, even for really good stuff. I mean, stuff that's in the hills and stuff that normally goes for $9,000 a ton. You could probably get a good deal for it right now.
Do you have anything right now in up in Hell Mountain or Mount Beater that you manage?
Yeah, so I'm going to be doing a vineyard development right now in Mount Veeder. I'm going to be starting that on Monday. And
Okay.
I have one piece that's right on the border of Mount Veeder. Hell Mountain, I just have a spray account over in Hell Mountain, but I don't do too much work in Hell Mountain. It's pretty much Calistoga, St. Helena, like along the Silverado Trail 29, Highway 29 area, and then
Okay.
Coonsville, all over Coonsville, and then all those sites in Sonoma.
Okay. And in Sonoma, do you have a bunch of Zinfandel, or it's mostly Pinot, Chardonnay?
It's Pinot Chardonnay, but I do have some Cab out there.
Okay.
I also have some Rhone varieties like Grenache,
Is the Grenache?
Picpoul Blanc, Marsanne Roussanne, Viognier.
Okay.
Some Zinfandel, some Old Vine Zin. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Let's see. Now is the time to experiment on your first vintage. Yeah, I mean, I do have 3 barrels right now from a vineyard that I leased in St. Helena. So it's coming out. Let's see. I have a mock wine label right here. So it's not exactly like that, but it's gonna. Yeah, that's gonna be my wine logo label.
And are you making the wine?
I'm having a friend winemaker make it for me over in Sonoma, Ken Warnick. He's with Hideout Wines.
Okay.
I installed a vineyard for him back in 2015, and we've become really good friends.
Yeah, I work for Sbraja down what used to be Lake Sonoma.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, with Sbraja.
Sure.
He started the winery back in 2004.
Yes.
And I helped him out, develop that winery. And I left in 2015, and then went to work for Mondavi for 4 years. So, yeah,
wow.
yeah. So,
where in St. Helena is that vineyard?
So it's on Stanton Lane, off of so across the gas station from Visa Tui. That's what is it, Inglenook Road?
Inglenook, yeah.
And you go down probably about half a mile. On the right, Stanton Road. It's like a half an acre, 3/4 of an acre. It's right next to Senegal Estate, right up against it. So beautiful Cabernet vineyard. So, yeah.
How many tons do you get out of that?
I got 1.5 tons.
1.5. Oh, nice.
1.5.
Enough to
The
keep
other,
you busy.
well, actually, the other 1.5 I sold, but for that one, so I got a total of 3 tons. But I 1.5 for myself, and then the other 1.5 I sold to pay for the farming and for the wine project. And I was able to sell that at a premium price. So yeah. Let's see this.
All right.
Yeah. Let me just look through my notes, Molly. If there's anything Okay. One thing you might come across is clients that don't pay for the work that you've done. Or did we cover that already? Probably not. So, you want to make sure that, let's just say there's a client that doesn't pay forward. Let's say their vineyard has to be suckered, has to be sprayed. That's an issue that comes across. So you have to know how to address that. You have to have that spelled out in your contract, how that's going to be addressed. And, you might have to send an email to your client saying, we're behind, 60 days, 90 days. I'm not going to, what's going to be the consequence? Are you going to not go in there and do the suckering pass, the spraying pass? That's documented. And,
just a note on that too. I know Molly's mentioned this before, but as a grower, make sure you always invoice your client, your winery, because
Yes.
a lot of them, even though that contract is in place, don't necessarily remember or choose
Yes.
not to remember that the payment's due by a certain date.
Yes, that is correct. And sometimes they just say, you know, we are. It's always the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. They might have their accounts like in New York and other parts of the world, and that's a really good point.
So let's say that they didn't pay you for half a year. Do you charge interest on that money?
Yeah, so we have a
or
clause. We charge 1% per
okay,
month.
okay,
You know, I'm not going to let it get to that point. If someone's not paying, like, let's say 60 days, I'm not going to continue doing work unless they have a conversation with me and say, you know, COVID is happening. I'll get you 4,000 right now, and I can get you the 4,000 in a month. You know, they're actually communicating with me, then we can work something out. But if there's absolutely no communication, then that's the point where you want to, you know, stop doing work and get out of there. And, you know, before you're just going to dig yourself in a hole deeper and deeper. So, just look through my notes. Oh, one thing I do have with my team is a depth chart. So, you know, like a sports team, you know, you have your first string quarterback, second string quarterback, third string quarterback. So I have that with all my employees. So if, let's just say, a tractor driver goes down as far as like he gets sick or his wife goes into labor and, you know, he's going to have to be gone for a month or you know, a week or whatever, who do you have else on your team that can fill in that role? You know, you should always have a depth chart on all your employees. Know all the skills all your employees know. So there's some employees that I didn't even know spoke English. You know, all of a sudden I heard him like talking on the phone with someone that spoke English. I'm like, wow, this guy. There's some clients that don't speak Spanish, so a good thing would be to train this one guy to become a supervisor. Then he can communicate with the clients. You know, there's some guys that I didn't know knew how to weld. So I mean, we have a welder. You know, there's some clients that know how to do, you know, kill gophers with gopher traps and things like that. And just interview you guys when you first hire them, what they know how to do other than vineyard work. I mean, some guys I know how to do rock walls and, you know, things like things that are, you know, you need but don't necessarily know at the time. So it's really a good idea to, and as far as vineyard development, how many guys know how to like lay out a vineyard? I mean, that's a skill that not too many people know, or some people know, but they don't know how to do it correctly. I mean, being off a quarter inch could really mess up everything else. And then knowing where that mistake was made of the quarter inch, you know, the guy I have is just phenomenal. He'll know immediately where the mistake was done, and then he'll go back and correct it. Let's see. You know, when you get a vineyard plant, there's 3 soil scientists that I've used in the past. One's Paul Animosa. He's one of probably my soil agronomist by choice who I like to use, but he's usually very busy. So if you ever want to use someone like that, get on his schedule because he's usually books months in advance. Another lab I use is De La Valle Labs out of Fresno. And they're very well, they're very good to use. Another one is CBC, Coastal Viticultural Services. I've used them in the past. That's something you definitely need to do before you plant a vineyard, just for yeah, all that good stuff. If you guys are out in the vineyard, I don't know what your policy is for your, some bosses don't want you taking pictures of what you have out on in your work space. But, if I had the phone that I have right now, there was still a lot of disposable cameras and actually shoe boxes of photos that I've taken back when I worked with the other vineyard manager, of stuff that it's just really cool to have. But now with the phones, I mean, all this technology that's at your disposal, take advantage of it. Take a picture of it tells you the date of when things happened, and it's a good way to document things. Take before and after pictures. Take when bud break occurs, as vines grow, when pictures of when bloom right before a rain, and then a picture of the effects after a rain. I mean, there's always things that, and then you can always use that as reference. I mean, that's what I'm doing. Every time I go out in the vineyard, I'm always taking pictures of what I'm observing. And I sometimes even take pictures of when I go to other colleagues' vineyards and take a picture of what they're doing, their trellis systems. Sometimes they might do things a little differently than how we do it. But yeah.
Do you ever post the pictures on social media, or you just keep them for yourself?
Yeah, I post a lot on social media. I haven't been posting as much lately on social media, but in the past, I used to post like just about every single week on social media. But I think I need to go back to that now. And I think back in 2014, 15, 16, I was always posting stuff on social media. And now it's more, my social media is a lot with my family now. And so I think I need to go back to starting Nunez Vineyard Management Facebook page and strictly just do business things on that. But yeah, I think social media is a good way to market your business and let people know exactly what you're doing. And yeah. So you just take one look.
I had a question on the unemployment for your temporary workers.
Yes.
Do they get the unemployment, or because I know if they get laid off, they are eligible to receive unemployment, but if you fire them, they can't. So you lay them off.
So if you fire employees, they are able to get unemployment. If you lay them off, they're able to get unemployment. So yeah, I mean, that's by law. You have to provide unemployment. And that's something that, you say at the time of termination or at the time of laying off, you have the right to file for unemployment. Another thing is insurance. I forgot to mention is you have a really good insurance company. We have De La Valle Labs, our DLL Insurance out of Fresno, and that's Joe Martinez, the broker. And I believe they have, I think they're doing Walsh as well, if I remember correctly. But they're doing some other vineyard management companies here in the Valley. But, we have workers' comp through them, liability insurance, pesticide liability insurance. Those are the ones required if you're going to have a vineyard management company. They require those. The ones that are extra, they've gotten more and more expensive. But errors and omissions is another insurance that is something that you should consider if you are going to go into the vineyard management business. That is like if you do something incorrectly or if something gets messed up, that policy would cover the mistake. Another one is EPLI insurance. That's employee practice liability insurance. So that's like if your foreman does something or an employee does something, and now there's a lawsuit that would cover your lawyer fees. But that's has a high premium now. But that's another insurance that is available. And yeah. See any more questions?
All right.
Yeah, I think was there anything I didn't cover on this?
I think we got it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Absolutely. And if anyone here needs to get a hold of me, feel free to reach out on my website. I have my contact info there through email or give me a phone call. It's the number on the website is my direct cell phone number. So yeah, feel free to reach out. And I had a pleasure talking to you guys. This is my 11th year doing this class, and I hope to continue doing it for years to come.
Yeah, thanks for every year we've had a field trip. This was going to be our last field trip to Nunez, and it's almost as much fun as being out in the vineyard drinking wine.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you so much, Mike.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye. Glad to have you. All right, everyone who's still here. I've got to run. I've got another meeting in like 5 minutes. But I will send out your final. If you have questions about farm plan or something is submitted, blah, blah, blah. I'll be reaching out to students who I think need to do a little bit more or something just to kind of make their farm plan a little better. And that will be in the next couple days. I've opened them all and looked at them, and most of them look great. But if you have problems submitting, please just keep working at it. You might have to try doing different smaller files. But
Okay.
All right, everybody.
And then as soon as I get my computer, I'll send them to you.
All right.
And
Sorry about
Molly,
that.
Are we meeting next week?
Yes, we will meet next week, but it won't be a full meeting. And you
Okay.
will have your midterm before that. All right.
Did you get my farm plan, Molly?
I did. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
What about mine?
Thank-
Yep, I've got Karina's, Sean's, Martine's, Jesus's, Tina's, yeah, Peter's and Samuel's technical problems.
Yes.
Yeah, would you like me
Well,
just to try submitting a couple different files, or is that email
Yeah,
good
why
enough?
don't you try uploading? Well, try uploading via Canvas.
Yeah.
A
So
couple-
it's all there.
like one file at a time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can I make multiple submissions for that?
I think so.
Okay.
Um,
All right. Yeah. I'll see, and then if not, I'll break down the PDF or something.
okay.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks
guys.
so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Molly.